American muscle versus German engineering, a naturally aspirated V8 versus a twin turbocharged inline six. Which one's gonna come out on top? Well, we're about to find out because we're gonna compare the Ford Mustang Dark Horse versus the BMW M2. Let's get into it. As always in this series, we're gonna start off with the engines in both of these vehicles. Now, both these vehicles have iconic engines. Who hasn't heard of the Coyote engine? That is a 5-liter naturally aspirated overhead, dual overhead cams for a V8. This is American and sound like it too. And equally as iconic is the BMW engine, a 3-liter inline six that is twin turbocharged. This is the same inline six that comes in the M3 and the M4. In fact, it's just a little bit down on power, about 20 horsepower. Funny thing is, 20 horsepower is about how much up the Coyote engine is compared to the last version, which was in the Mach 1. The Mustang Mach 1 made 480 horsepower. The Dark Horse, however, makes a whopping 500 horsepower. Now, 20 horsepower may not seem like a lot, but for those who do modify their vehicles, bump of 20 horsepower is quite a bit. It's nothing to sneeze at. Yeah, so that's a really good horsepower rating. This is compared to the inline six that makes 453 horsepower. Very good. And in fact, I think that's the most amount that a BMW M2 engine has ever made, but it is less than the BMW M3 and M4, which is actually the same engine, which is kind of interesting when it comes to practicality and livability. Like a M3 is a little bit more practical and livable than the M2, and it has a little bit more horsepower. And it's almost the same amount of weight, but we're gonna get to that in just a second. Torque-wise, we're looking at 418 foot-pounds of torque for the Dark Horse. They actually lost 2 foot-pounds of torque versus the Mach 1, which I think is very interesting. This is compared to a very close number of 406 foot-pounds of torque from the BMW M2. Now, that weight factor that I mentioned earlier, the BMW M2 is 3,814 pounds. That is quite heavy for a small, somewhat compact vehicle. I mean, I won't really consider the Mustang to be a compact vehicle, but most M2s, yeah, I'd say that's a somewhat smaller compact vehicle, but it's heavy. It's only 54 pounds lighter than the Dark Horse at 3,868 pounds. I find that very fascinating because we always think, oh, American vehicles. You got the Mustang, you got the Corvette, and you got the Camaro. Corvette's actually kind of heavy too, but you have the Camaro and you have a Mopar. Like anything, Challenger, Charger, those things are heavy. They're considered boats. But in this case, BMW isn't really that far behind. So Mustang is doing a fantastic job. BMW, not so much, in all honesty, especially compared to previous generations, which I want to do in a later video. In fact, I want to do 2 other videos, one for the Dark Horse and one for the BMW M2, to see how they've come over the years, but also, most importantly, how they stack up to the other trims that are available. Redline, though, for the Mustang is a good 7,500 RPM. Usually I talk about the peak torque and the peak horsepower, but today I don't have those numbers because this car is so new. Those numbers don't exist right now, or at least we don't know them right now. But we will shortly, and I will definitely update this video as soon as we know that. Peak horsepower and the peak torque for the BMW, though, is 6,250, that is RPMs, and the peak torque for the BMW is 2,650. The 0 to 60, that's what we all want to hear, and we do have the 0 to 60 for the Dark Horse as well as the BMW. And the Dark Horse is more speculative. So the journalists who have actually talked about this before went ahead and said that their best estimate for the Dark Horse is 3.8 for the automatic and 4 seconds for the manual. That is very good times when it comes to Mustang. 0 to 60 times for the BMW. I have 2 different numbers. One was from the actual BMW website that said 3.9 seconds. That's what they advertised, 3.9 seconds for the automatic and 4.1 seconds for the manual. However, there was a YouTuber that I'm going to link in the description down below that was able to get 3.6 seconds in Arizona. Now, I live in Arizona, and the roads around here are not great. They're not great at all. You're not really good for traction, so I'd say that that is a very respectable time for the automatic. When it comes to quarter mile times, this again gets very interesting, and I speculate based off of the 0 to 60 times for the Dark Horse that the manual will be about 12.2 seconds. Now, how did I get to this time? Well, let's think about it real quick. Mach 1 does 4.3 seconds, 0 to 60. The Dark Horse is rated to do 4 seconds, 0 to 60 for a manual. Both of these are manuals. So we're gonna talk about the manual quarter mile time real quick. When it comes to the Mach 1, it did it in 12.6 seconds. So I think a 12.4 seconds to a 12.2 seconds is very reasonable, especially considering the 20 horsepower jump that the Dark Horse has. Now, when it comes to the automatic, I think we could possibly see 11.9 seconds, maybe 11 or 12.1 or 12 dead when it comes to the quarter mile time for an automatic. Let me know what you guys think, but I think that would be a reasonable guesstimate when it comes to the quarter mile time. When it comes to the power to weight ratio, we do know this for a fact. The power to weight ratio is 1.29 horsepower per 10 pounds, which is actually better than the BMW M2 at 1.18 horsepower per 10 pounds. Now, price-wise, it's the same thing. The BMW comes in at $63,000 as a starting price, which is a good amount of money, where the Dark Horse is just a little bit under, just under 60,000. I've seen 57,000 and 59,000. So really close, but for the performance amount and what you actually get from it, I think the Dark Horse is really giving the BMW a run for the money. Which one would I pick? Well, personally, I like the BMW M2. I think the Dark Horse is a fantastic vehicle. I have a little bit of a softer spot when it comes to BMWs, but really with Mustangs and BMWs, they're pretty even. And I just really like the look of the BMW M2. Maybe other people don't, but I think the Mustang looks good too. So which one would you guys have? Let me know in the comment section below, because I'd love to hear what you guys think. And let me know if you guys like this type of video by giving it a like. And if you want to see those future videos breaking down each of these, the Dark Horse and the BMW M2, and putting them against their other lineups like the M3, the M4, and all the other lineups that BMW has, as well as the Mustang GT, because the Mustang GT isn't dead. I mean, the Dark Horse is a higher one, kind of like the Mach 1. So you have the Mustang GT, you have the EcoBoost, and all that other stuff. All that good stuff that does do quite well when it comes to performance. So if you want to see the breakdown of what you will actually get with these higher trim vehicles, go ahead and subscribe so you can see that in the future. But as always, you know this. Respect the speed, enjoy the journey, and love those around you. I'll see you guys in the next video.